Hello, everyone. We are officially recording. I am here with Joanna on today's episode of the Do a Picture Today podcast. Hello, Joanna.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello. You are my first, second occurrence guest.
Yeah, repeat guest.
I know, that's exciting stuff. That's when you know, like, your episodes are getting vast, when it's like, oh, that gem of an episode, we're going to invite. That's going to be a reoccurring, you know? I will do my best to lead us in here. Feel free to interrupt or interject anytime. But based off of our chats previously before I hit record, and we have each other's numbers, we've been texting. You just went on a 5-month sabbatical in 5 different countries and learned a whole shit ton about abundance in regards to therapy, mental health, and how you've learned this, integrated this, and now have launched your own business to explore and share this. So kind of a full circle moment here.
Yeah, it's like even before I left, I ended up learning and how to integrate this in order for me to end up quitting my job, putting all my stuff into storage, and taking this leap of faith into abundance. So yeah, it started even before, but it definitely kept getting integrated during all the travels.
What made you want to take a pause and just be like, you know what, I need 5 months. I need to put my stuff in storage. I need to remove myself and go off and do my own journey for a bit. What was kind of your indicators, or how did that organically come to be?
I think for like a lot of people during COVID, a lot of us were like, I want to get out of here and stuff. And for me, it wasn't just that particular time. Like I had studied abroad when I was younger. After grad school, I moved overseas to Australia and came back. So a lot of my adult life, I was already wanting to explore and get out of the States. So it was just kind of this culmination of, I started thinking about it more during COVID, but I think whether COVID or not happened, it would have just innately happened for me because I'm so used to wanting to just switch things up. So, with COVID, of course, the peak of not traveling and all these things, it just never came to fruition. But essentially what happened was like I moved and I had this place in Venice and I thought I was going to really love it. And I just kept feeling restless. It's like, okay, well, I changed my job and I changed my living and I love my friends, but something still inside of me was like buzzing, but in an uncomfortable way. And I was just feeling more irritable. And so I just like my body tells me when something needs to shift. And so,
Yeah. So from that point, I mean, going into this 5 months, did you have nerves? Were you ready to go? Like, how are you feeling?
yeah. So I think I definitely was nervous because for me, my scarcity mindset was around money. Right. So I started working with someone who's actually my friend's husband, and we had like a few sessions. We'll call them like coaching sessions, but he offered this to some folks, and he actually has a terminal illness. And so it was a very unique experience of sitting in front of someone where I had to really think about my own mortality every single time I sat in front of him. But aside from that, although that was like present, it wasn't, the main focus. It was what I wanted to do, what I, have been kind of craving to do and switch in my life. So he basically just said, like, what's the biggest fear or barrier here? And I said, my concern for money, my concern for quitting my job, leaving this 10-year loan forgiveness program that I'm already like 6 or more years into. Like my ideas of, okay, well, I'm used to saving this much for my IRA and this much for my 401, and just the idea that I'm going to be losing essentially. And what we ended up doing is just like this, he reframed it and he's like, essentially it's like an investment rather than the way I was thinking about it. So as soon as I was able to flip that and go from scarcity to like, I'm investing, this is an abundant thing for my life, it's going to like put me on a different trajectory and fill my own cup. That essentially allowed me to move forward with just working on a budget and seeing how much would this thing cost. Once I saw the numbers, I'm like, that's not that big of a deal. I know a few $1,000. Yeah, I'm not saying it's nominal, but it's just I am worth the investment. And so once I like shifted that, like it was like go from there. And that was like on the second time I met with him. And after that, it was like no looking back. I was letting everything go to make sure that months later I was going to be on a plane booked to go to my first destination.
And I think that's a great point as well. We get very caught up, especially with, okay, I need to save, I need to put money in my 401k. I can totally understand not the stress, but like the uncomfortability of, even as minute as that might seem for some, like that can be a big deal when you're trying to save and financially be strong. And
it's huge. And my parents weren't even born in the States. So I learned all of this like in my 20s, because I was so scared shitless of money and saving and anxiety and all this. I wasn't raised with a silver spoon in my mouth or all these things, but these few thousand, 8, 9, 10,000 bucks is not going to make or break me. And then I'm also not being irresponsible though, too. It's like, I'm not throwing things on my credit card, right? Like I'm being mindful. I'm not telling people here to just throw everything to the wayside and leave everything. Like we have to also be thoughtful.
Mm-hmm. You're worth the investment. Take the risk, but do it in a way that it's responsible. You're not going to get burned later. 5 months, 5 countries. What 5 countries did you travel to?
So I started in Ecuador and I went to a little beach town. It was like perfect to start my trip that way. It's a small little pueblo. There's like max 400 or 500 locals that live there. It's just beautiful. There's just ocean and you just have this long strand of beach you can walk on. And there's not this hustle and bustle or noise. It's just really small. And I got to just put my phone away and bring books and really like slow my nervous system down. So that's like an incredibly different shift from living in LA, working at the clinic, coming home, working in private practice just to like stay afloat and get to live my lifestyle. So I just went from working a bunch to like I saw maybe 1 to 2 clients, during the first part of my sabbatical. So yeah, I started in Ecuador and that was amazing, a month there. Then I went to Colombia and I got to visit my uncle and my aunt who are in Medellin. So that was nice, but that was a huge shift from being in a calm beach town to like a big city again. After that, I went to Costa Rica because I had a business deal come through and I bought some land there, which is also exciting, which is also like part of abundance. Abundance is like leaving things open and like we're not going to have control for everything, which is like I planted this seed so many years ago. I wrote in a book that one day I'm going to own property in Costa Rica and I'm going to have a retreat business. Like 10 years ago, when you plant it and you believe it and you just leave things open, things can happen. That was fun and unexpected. So that was awesome. I got to see some friends and meet some new friends. And then after that, I just hopped to Spain for one day as a layover and went to Valencia, which was awesome and unexpected. Wasn't supposed to do that and left that open. Ended up loving that. But then I went to a little village in Italy and I stayed with a friend that I used to study abroad with years before. And she was an amazing host. And then after I spent like over a month and a half there, I went back to Valencia because, again, more abundance things happened. In Italy, I thought I was going to lose all my clients and have zero work before I came back to the States. And again, this just kind of goes to show like the universe, God, whatever you believe in is going to provide for you. So like by the end of then going back to Spain and the city that I didn't know anything about that I fell in love with, I had 10 clients by the time I came back thinking I was going to have zero. So it's just ways like once you start believing in abundance and feeling it truly and knowing it in your body, like things will just come to you.
There's so many amazing things you just said there, like the abundance bit, the like letting the universe kind of guide you rather than forcing it, buying like your dream like property in Costa Rica, having a retreat, which we'll talk about in a minute. But like, I think that is so eloquently said that when you trust in the universe, God, how you put it, someone, I know there's someone there, there's something there, there's energy, whatever you call it. Like it does really work for you if you just follow your intuition. The money will come, the clients will come, the opportunities will come. So I'm so glad I asked that question. That wasn't on our show notes. I threw that in there. So I know it's probably a tough question to answer. First off, the balls to plan the trip, to book the trip, to see the trip through. What are some amazing things that you've learned in these 5 months? I know that's a heavy question.
Yeah, there's so many things that came to mind. And like one thing is like I think in the States, I'm often in this like masculine do energy, which probably a lot of us are in our culture. And in some ways, it's really positive as women that we've been able to, of course, now have our own bank accounts and run our own businesses and be CEOs and all of these great things. But I think women, we've just been holding too much, like personally, right? Like people that are CEOs and moms and doing everything. It's like there's like this imbalance, I feel. And I just feel like I had been, carrying so much masculine energy. And I got to like just put all of that down because I wasn't working two jobs and just thinking about doing. I got to kind of just be more in this creative flow, in this being state, nurturing and nourishing myself, allowing others to, right, during this trip. I wasn't like in luxury hotels or anything. I was like, staying in some places that I booked, but also staying with loved ones. I was just allowing myself to be held, and so that is something I wanted to bring back, is like remove this hyper independence and this pride around that I think sometimes we can have in the States, or like personally I have had. And also some of that is, I'm first generation American, a lot of us that are, you don't want to throw away all the sacrifices your ancestors, your grandparents, your parents have made for you. So, I'm just kind of realizing that can shift. Like they've worked so hard and sacrificed, and I can still work hard, but it can look different. It doesn't need to look the same.
That's an interesting point, because it's very much a cultural thing where you feel like you're not doing something, you're not doing enough. You take the moment to just let yourself be. That's when those natural things just kind of come to you. So I definitely can, like, it is weird because you have to just believe it before you see it. I don't think we necessarily work that way, of like just believing of like, okay, if I take my foot off the accelerator, like it will come. And that's usually, we have to see things before we believe them. But that is an excellent point. I've never heard it called masculine energy, but is it kind of like more the provider energy? I need to get this done.
That's what it is to me. It's just like doing, providing, rigid and like task oriented,
I know we talked about abundance in a little bit, but I want to put some weight into the word. I think when you start something of this vast, like not disruptive in a negative way, but just, you're changing you're flipping your life to do this, you're changing the trajectory of where your life goes. And so I was just curious, before you set out on that journey, what was your mind space prior to?
It's a pattern interrupt. Like I needed to interrupt my pattern, right? Like again, I hear this all the time from my clients or parents. It's like, it ends up being Groundhog Day, and somehow it's like a year later and you're still doing the same thing and hanging around the same people. And maybe life's okay, but like for me, I've had a lot of death in my life, and I don't want to just have an okay life. I don't just want to have a life that other people want for me. And so I think I'm just really cognizant of that, and that doesn't scare me. It just motivates me to, live in the way that I want. But yeah, I mean, I kind of going back to answer your question again, it's just like, by the time I ended this trip, I wanted to be committed to doing private practice. I didn't want to work back in this system again where I had to be there 40 hours in a concrete building. Like I wanted to have my retreat business going, and I'm doing all that. And I'm so grateful for that. And I just feel so much peace in my body. It's like I'm just fully leaning and leaping into it, and knowing like this is all going to work out, and this is the way I want to live my life.
How do you think people start to reframe or rework what abundance is, and how can you like set to attain it?
Yeah, and I think that's important. So there's abundance of like, but you think of material things, right? People think, oh, like they see on social media, or this person has this car or whatever. That's like one form of abundance. But to come back also to answer your question, is like, we have to decide today, like I have everything I need. Like for the most part, if we have food and we have shelter and water, that's like way more than most people have. And I think that's we forget that. We forget it and we take it for granted. So it's just starting like, what do I have rather than what don't I have?
Do you think there's also like abundance with self-confidence and self-perceived self-esteem as well. Like I can speak to myself personally. I can train my mind. Like I have a gratitude journal that I write in every day.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something that's like, I am enough, and like that self-worth and that abundance that correlates with that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think what I hear you saying is like, okay, so there's this belief system, right? But if the belief system's so far-fetched, because let's say someone grew up and their parent was like, you're not good enough, or you're too big, or whatever, those core wounds are like so rooted, and there's been so many layers of those over and over and over. So for someone to just be like, oh, I'm going to think my way out of this, I just think that's BS. Like people put that out there like this is the easiest thing to do. So as a therapist, I'm really grateful to be in spaces with people to kind of see their behaviors, and then we get to identify what belief system is that, where did that even start? And then, yeah, we can do the cognitive behavioral therapy where we could, as a therapist, I think it's easier if we start with an action to challenge the thoughts and feelings that we have. But sometimes that still doesn't fully help, and there's still some of that gunk still there, and we still really believe that negative belief about ourselves, that we're not worthy or we're not deserving of love, or we're in danger or whatever it is. So I also do EMDR with clients, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, where we're able to link the left and the right lobe together, and we're able to move through this visceral physical sensation that's there. So the 5-year-old that heard like you're not good enough, when that comes up when we're 30 or 40 or 50, we're able to clear some of that physically out of the body, because this stuff gets trapped in the body. It's not just a thought situation. So, and if I can say an example, like I was working with someone like last week, and maybe they didn't have awareness to this, and maybe if we haven't had this relationship already, like as an outsider, I would just be like, oh, like that's whatever, that seems okay. But this person told me, they're wanting to fall in love and really have a committed partner. And essentially their belief system just went to, oh, once I get my body in this particular shape, I then will attract the right person. And I kind of look at that as a facade. Okay, that's a behavior happening. What's the root of that? And the root isn't, oh, I really think once I get my body, there's like a deeper root in there. Like I'm not good enough just the way I am, where there's not love out there already just as I am. So I think abundance is just knowing these opportunities for love and success and joy and health are here today, not in this future place where we don't even know if we're going to wake up tomorrow. So it's again, being really present and what do I have now? And yeah, just appreciating like what you have now to stay open for abundance to walk into your life.
And would you say that's kind of what abundance means to you?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just gratitude, because again, I didn't always think like this, growing up first gen, having all this college debt, which I still have the debt, but my God, the way I think about it and the way I feel about it is so viscerally different. I would wake up with anxiety. All these things, I would like resent my family, like these things that just were illogical. I mean, it's valid that, we don't all have equity and things like that, but that no longer serves me. And so now instead of living in that place, which I lived in for years, I could just live in this place of like, well, what do I have? I speak 2 languages. I have my master's degree. I love traveling. I love bringing people together. It's just like thinking about what do I already have today to keep building in all these different areas of abundance too. And again, the faith that just God, the universe is going to provide for you. And so that's another area which I think people are maybe disconnected from some sort of faith or spirituality. And so I think that's really missing in a lot of people's lives. And then not that I'm saying people have to have some sort of religious or belief system, but I think to believe in something more than just yourself to lean into is like really helpful.
I know, and I can truly say this, there are people out there who are trying to figure out either a purpose or how to navigate life, navigate through lack of abundance. And I was really blessed. I didn't travel to, take 5 months and travel, but I did put myself in a situation that really kind of showed me that the universe is kind of on my side. I just have to listen to it. For folks that do recognize that they're lacking that one-on-one relationship, with the quote unquote universe or being in a state of abundance, some tips to help redirect into a more positive light would be take inventory of what you do have, the necessities. Most people if you're listening to this, you probably have water, food, and shelter. Check that box. From there, like what else can people do?
Thinking about like relationship with self is really important, right? Like when I was a teen, I have this significant trauma that happened, and my belief systems went from this confident, like popular, fun, like girl that got along with everyone to like you're undeserving or you're unworthy. These things that had nothing to do with my family or the way I was raised, but this adverse experience. And that really shifted the way I thought about myself. And so I had to relearn how to love myself and also how to fully and radically accept myself. I think that's what I see a lot in therapy is people not fully and radically accepting themselves and all of themselves, So I think we do need to get to a place where we love ourselves, or at a minimum fully accept ourselves, to then be open to different things, changing our career, dating, like taking risks, right? So doing the work to genuinely love yourself, not in this way that's like superficial and I look good. It's like really like, do you feel good with yourself when you go to bed every night? Are you making decisions that make you happy, not other people happy? Are you able to communicate assertively rather than passively just to people please everyone? So I don't know. I think that's like one area that people can grow in, to just really tune in with themselves, because I think authenticity and abundance go hand in hand, which is why both of those are going to be part of my next retreat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you dive a little bit more on authenticity and kind of the correlation with abundance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's different ways of living authentically. Not everyone's going to have the same thing. People can definitely do a lot of things. It's just going to look differently. So things I'm not willing to negotiate anymore because they make me really happy, and that's how I want to live my life. And if someone says, oh, you have 2 years to live or 1 year to live, I want to live it today the way that I want to, again, assuming that I'm responsible and I'm taking care of myself and I'm financially doing all right. The consequence of not living authentically is just way too uncomfortable for me. And I've done it so many times where I'm like in a relationship or I'm in a job that its expiration date is like way past due and I'm staying in it and I'm staying in it. And like viscerally, I'm just like crawling out of my skin. I'm irritable. I'm not sleeping well. And so thank God for that. In therapy, I call that the red body, where it's like lighting up and it's like telling you something isn't working. And like, we hate that, but it's a gift. It keeps us alive. It's our survival body. So I'm just so grateful for that. And that tells me when something's not really working for me and when I need to also make a shift.
Mm-hmm. I as a non-therapist, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Unless you sit and kind of reflect on what is authentic to you, there are people who don't want to, live in a city, want to live on a farm and have their self-sufficient farm, anything under the moon. But I think unless you take a moment and reflect on what's authentic to you, you'll never really know.
Yes. And I think something that's so important is if you're listening to this and you chose something, you chose the job because you thought you loved it, you chose a relationship, you chose to move somewhere, give yourself permission to change it. This is your life. Who gives a shit if your family is upset because you decided to exit your relationship or marriage, right? You're the one that has to live it every single day. So give yourself permission to change. And that might be from one day to the next. Coming back to self-awareness, you have to be also so self-aware, because there's things like I want to run from because they're uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean that's still not the authentic thing that I want. Because of my own traumas or things. I want to exit a conflict. I want to avoid this. Okay, but that exiting is not aligned with what I truly want. So we just have to have awareness of what's our defense mechanisms and fleeing strategies versus I was thoughtful and like, this isn't really for me. And we don't need to spend 6 months in anything to figure that out. Do some meditation, journal, listen to your body, see how you feel around that person or in that job, and then make a decision. Also, don't sit in analysis paralysis forever. Trust yourself. But again, as a therapist, trust is really hard for people who have had trauma, because developmentally, if you couldn't trust your parents, it's hard to find those strategies to self-soothe and then trust yourself. So, there's a lot of adults that have a really hard time trusting themselves.
I have a couple more questions, but I think we touched upon them briefly enough already. But I really want to spend a moment, and I don't think I had this in the document, but I wanted to chat with you about how you're incorporating and integrating authenticity and abundance in your retreat that you have. Because through this mindset, you're able to purchase land in Costa Rica. You're going to turn it into a retreat. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So if I can just touch on the Costa Rica thing again, years ago when I was living in South Bay, I had made this folder and I wrote in there, like, in 10 years, I will own property in Costa Rica. I will have this retreat center. It's going to be wellness. And it is mind boggling because when I moved this last time, I found that binder and I'm like, this is before 10 years. It looks slightly different because I'm still just buying the land and we have to still build, but I'm also doing retreats. And so that's kind of that journey, and that's going to take a while to keep building out, but it's amazing once you plant a seed and you believe in something. That, again, I got that call from my friend. He's like, hey, like, we have an opportunity for you to buy into this land. I never, like, how could I plan for that? Like, he knew that I wanted property, but I didn't know that call was going to come through. I just kept saving continuously year after year. And then I was like in a position to be able to buy it. So that's that. But yeah, with the retreat, so really excited. Again, this is where I started my sabbatical in Ecuador. It's like, again, beautiful little pueblo where the jungle meets the sea. There's not a lot of people live in there. So it's a very authentic experience, in my opinion. We're going to have yoga. So people are going to be able to tune into their bodies and decompress. Again, so much of life is like people distracting, TV, social media, going out. It's like, just come back to yourself, come home. And so my friend Teresa, who's a nutritionist and yoga instructor from Spain, is going to be doing all of our yoga and a nutrition workshop. And then Jen, who is also an LCSW, or licensed clinical social worker here in California in LA, she offers breath work. So we're going to be doing a breath work session with her. And again, because so much gets stored in the body, we're just going to be like releasing, and whatever that means for people. Some people might shake, some people might cry, some people might yell. We just need to move things out and through the body. We're also going to have hiking. And so we're going to go to an island and do an island tour of hiking. And we get to do bilateral stimulation when you're hiking. So that is also really grounding and kind of clearing out the body. And you get to tap into the left and the right lobe of the brain. I kind of get to talk about that in a therapy way. And then I'm going to be doing some workshops. I definitely know a few of the exercises that I'm doing, but again, it's just like mindfulness around like, how are we living our lives today and what does it look like? And then how do we want to restructure? And by the time people leave, my goal is for people to feel more grounded, trust themselves more, and have a clear plan of how they're going to start following through to make shifts in their lives. I hope most people just put their phones away and just be present and, tell your family where you're at and your friends, and that's it. Like, put that phone away until the evening, connect with nature. Like, I read this book on my sabbatical. It's called Mirrors in the Earth. And it was so beautiful. Like, I'll go on a walk and I'll start naming the trees, and I'm just so much more mindful and connected to Earth. So I hope people also get to come back home in that sense and realize how much more connected we are to Earth than sometimes we might feel in like cities or living in homes and stuff like that.
I like how you put come back home. Yeah. But you're right. Through just day-to-day life, people do forget that you're human. And so I think that's a really precious thing you've created where you're able to come back to home.
I will say there's one thing that I missed when you asked about like, what did I gain? Like, the other thing I just wanted to say is you don't need to be an expert at something to start. Like, you just need to start. So like Nike, just do it. Like, if you haven't read that book, Shoe Dog 2, I highly recommend. Just start. Honestly, I'm here too. I just fully launched my retreat business, but we did a retreat before I left on my sabbatical and it was awesome. So it's just like, just do it. Trembling, scared, nervous, like one foot in front of the other. because life's too short to just sit on the hamster wheel. But
Yeah.
anyways, that was a tangent about just kind of going
No,
back to
I think that's important.
something else that I gained.
Because I agree with you 100%. There's never going to be the right time. The chips will not all fall perfectly. There's going to be things where it's like, oh, this is a leap of faith, or oh, this is super uncomfortable. It's very rare for anyone that I've had on the podcast, myself included, where you get to have a nice paved road to pull your business across. And it's going to look real ugly, but it's going to be beautiful in the process. So 100% agree with you. So let's transition to rapid fire questions, because I do have some questions for you. Plus, they're just fun. They're kind of
so hard for me though, because you're the things that I love.
Okay. Favorite spot you've traveled to? I put domestic or international, because you are the international traveler.
Yeah. So it's like super hard because I love so many places, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to live in a few different countries and travel. But I am half Peruvian and I'm half Colombian. So Peru though has like the best food. Truly, they have like the top restaurants in the world, the most. So kudos to them and my heritage. I love it. Like you get the ocean, you can get to the mountains in Machu Picchu, you can get to the desert. Like you just get so much diversity, and yeah, the food's great. So I definitely would recommend that to folks if they haven't gone there.
And you go to Peru later this year, right?
Yeah, I'll be there in December, January, February. So it's their summer there. So I get to ditch our winter.
Not that LA winter is bad. It's just when we get rain, it's like an all Hail Mary situation because we're just not set up for it. Are you doing anything in regards to the retreat business in Peru, or just more family and social connections?
Family, surf, working still. I do hope to kind of putting feelers out there to travel a little bit within so I can maybe find my next retreat location.
Oh, nice.
But also like even more than putting one on is like, again, filling my own cup with my culture, maybe doing some sort of healing circles or learning more about plant medicines, or just, giving back to myself also. But yeah, hopefully also scoping out maybe an opportunity, again, being open to abundance of like whatever happens, like when I go there, not planning that all out. But in terms of the retreat, if you're on Instagram, look up WOC retreats so you can find us there.
Do you have a go-to soundtrack or album?
I don't. I hop around. I just will put Teddy Swims radio, or like I'm listening to some sort of like Venezuelan rap lately. Yeah, just like I love rap and hip hop. I love salsa. I love dancing, so things that I can dance to. But I'm not a diehard, fan of really anyone, I don't think. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I think also too, it depends on like time of the year, the mood also. But I mean, I've had people, I've had people on that are just like, oh yeah, Swiftie till the end. And I was like, okay, this was the ultra marathoner who ran 250s and would blast Taylor Swift. Like,
oh my God. I digress.
Yeah.
I don't know how people are huge fans, but it's crazy.
I will say in 5th grade, I did pick up her like Teardrops on My Guitar, Tim McGraw album, like her first one at Target for like $4. But I think this is a total tangent, but because we're talking about it, why not? I do think because we've watched her grow up and just be scrutinized for her body image, how she responds, the drama, and you just watch her like, okay, I want the rights to my music. I can't have those. Well, shit, I'm taking it all off Spotify and I'm re-uploading it. Like you've just seen her become this really strong woman when I think she didn't start out that way. I think that's the connection that people
authenticity. Doing what you want, regardless of everyone wanting you to stay country, regardless of whatever, all this shit. It's like she does her, and people connect to that from generations. So yes, Taylor Swift, super authentic, and obviously super abundance. Like no one can deny that. She's probably doing, I don't listen to her stuff, but I'm sure she's doing collabs with all kinds of people that she would have never thought maybe. Or maybe she did. Maybe she knew she was going to do all this. Who knows? But she is definitely epitome of abundance and authenticity.
Yeah. That was a nice little tangent we just went on. I like that.
It connected.
It did. Good old T-Swizzle. Okay, last question. What are 3 things that you're grateful for?
Yeah, I'm grateful for my younger self. So that was just in October when I did decide, like, I'm doing this. I made the budget. I faced the fear. So I'm just so grateful that I did the thing and I'm still doing the thing. So that I'm so grateful for my clients in private practice. They show up every week and they trust me to hold a really safe and non-judgmental space and to do life with them, like as a teammate on the side. Of course, like people do all their lives without me 99% of the time, but I'm just so, so grateful for them and their trust. And yeah, I'm just seeing their lives improve, which brings me a lot of joy. And then definitely it's important for me to say out loud, I'm just so grateful for the people who, again, held me when I was on this sabbatical. My friend Francesca, who's in Italy, and I crashed with her. My uncle and aunt in Colombia, Giovanni and Olga. The place that I rented in Ecuador, I'm so grateful for their like hospitality. Staying with my friend Fabricio in Costa Rica. Like, I'm just so grateful. And for all the people that I met in between that were also very welcoming and loving. So I'm just still really impacted in a really positive way from all of the love that I was given during those 5 months.
Aw, that was awesome.
Yeah.
That's the podcast.
Woo! Thank you for having me back on as that repeat guest. And again, I'm sending you so much abundance. Like, I have no doubt that this thing's going to just keep soaring, and kudos to you, and sending you lots of love and with your marriage and work and everything. So, and your health, and kudos to you for all the amazing things you do with your body. You're definitely inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.